So if you haven't heard, on the 25th of January, we'll be having a progression reset. I know Edgecase doesn't necessarily like the term, but it's basically they're going to be resetting all your earned XP and credits and make you start back over with the starter ships. Now, it is not planned for them to wipe other track stats such as leaderboards, MMR rating, kills, deaths, all that stuff you see under your profile. But there was some discussion on the forums whether or not it should. And there were a lot of people with strong feelings with it, and a lot of people who just didn't care it wasn't going to impact them. But I wanted to make a video and throw up what I feel are the most important reasons not to, and why I actually don't think they're that big of a reason. First of all, protagonists let slip on the newest Talking Fractured episode with Kurt that they're planning on doing a new tracking system in a couple of months anyway. He said 6 to 8 weeks, but that was a guess, and it may not be that long. It could be a little longer, could be shorter, whatever. So, when they come out with this new system, they're going to have to do another wipe anyway. They really don't see a reason to do 2 wipes that close together. The second bigger reason is in wiping those stats, you wipe everyone's MMR, their matchmaker rating, which means all the veterans will go back to being in the same matches as everybody else, which leads to the feeling that people who are supporting it just want to beat on new players. So I wanted to take a look first at the tracking system. Now, I really don't think it's that big a deal, simply because a 2-month window isn't that bad for a seasonal reset. If nothing else, it gives ECG and the community a chance to look at like a 2-month window and see if this is more something where we're interested in, if we would like it to be more frequent than that or less frequent. Kind of gives us a good feeling about it. Previously, they've been every 4 or 5 months we've been doing resets, which is a bit longer. Now, throwing the vets back into the basically kiddie pool with everyone else, I understand the concern. But if you look at it, it's not actually that bad. From things protagonists have said and how the matchmaker system works, your first 10 games, you're going to be at 0 MMR value regardless. Everyone will be. It's to keep newer players who do well in a particular game from getting thrown up against better players. At the end of those 10 games, it then starts using your MMR value to match you in different games. A good veteran who has a few more good games than they have bad can easily push up through 1000 MMR by this 10th game. In fact, as I remember doing the math, it only would take 7 out of their 10 games to be a win. If you're so good that you're so disastrously swinging a match, 7 out of 10 games should be pretty easy. At that 1000 point marker, you move from the A band of players who are 0 to 1000 MMR into the B band, which is 1000 to 7000. Now, that means everyone who's gone through those 10 matches and has gotten more than 1000 MMR will be sitting in a 2-minute window in the matchmaker where it will prioritize those players into playing against other people in that band, which probably will be closer to just the first people to finish 10 matches. So, one of the things Protagonist has commented on is that it's quite easy for veterans to not only get to that second band by the end of 10 games, but by the end of 20, they could have possibly moved into the C band, which is 7,000 and up. Now, at C band, you cannot be matched against anyone in A. So anyone with 1000 MMR or lower, you just won't see. And considering that good chances of having people move into that C band in just as few as 20 games, assuming they are good, that they can pull in consistent results, means that after about the first week, you're just not going to see veterans fighting people who are in that A band window. Kind of like how it is now. In fact, by the end of those 10 games, they'll have moved into that B band where the matchmakers prioritizing other people in that band before opening it up, which is more or less how the system is working for the majority of players and the veterans right now. The veterans get 2 minutes where the system tries its best to find a match of 10 people, all of that C band, and then it gives up and throws them against as good a match as it can find with the people in C and B. So really, it doesn't change a whole lot, and it doesn't change it as soon as 10 games. So, I don't know, I feel like 10 matches is not that big a deal considering how small the veteran community is in comparison to the rest of the actual active community. We might play a good chunk of the matches, but we certainly aren't numerically that high. I think Protagonist mentioned at one point we're about 0.5% of the community size. That means it's a very small chance for those veterans to get paired up against newbies and just pub stomp. I should say it's a small chance for a particular newbie to encounter a vet who hasn't finished their 10 matches. And as the time goes on, that window shrinks smaller and smaller as more vets have finished their 10 matches. So, what does the 10 matches do for the veterans? Well, yes, it lets them farm newbies. And it's kind of a dick move, to be honest. But it does actually have a perk. In 10 matches, assuming you're popping XP boost at the end of every match, and maybe you don't mind blowing a little bit of platinum to unlock a favorite ship early, and you are earning a decent amount, at least double the average of, I think it's 1320 experience a match. You can actually earn more than 54,000 experience, which is enough to buy everything but the top tier ships. So that's everything but Overseer, Raven, and Ghost. Ghost you get through Phantom, so if you really want a Ghost, you can have that. That leaves the Raven and the Overseer as the only two you could not potentially get by the end of 10 matches. Again, assuming you're a skilled veteran who's pulling in, say, twice the experience or more, and you're popping 10 experience boosts through those 10 matches. Which means by the time they're fighting veterans, they'll have access to any ship they want. That's kind of important for a chunk of the community. A lot of players who are at that veteran status level experience are very specialized in particular ships. If your ship is a high tier versus somebody else's low tier, and you don't have access to that ship, you're basically playing with an inflated MMR value, which is more or less punishing you for the reset, for being specialized in a ship that's higher tier, which really isn't something you can control. Instead, it would give the veterans the chance to unlock the ship of their choice before getting thrown in against other veterans. So if you're a Watchman player, it gives you the chance to get your Watchman. You might be stuck with whatever they decide the default stats are, but at least you have it, which is a lot better prospect than grinding out matches with what is effectively an inflated MMR value against people who are proficient in their ships, who are playing their particular specialization, and are just going to gut you. Now, something else is being added into the patch. or reset, I should say, that's kind of something to keep in mind as well. We'll be having a permanently active matchmaker, and the system will include a pre-game blind pick lobby. Now you'll pick your ship without knowing what the enemy has chosen, but you'll be able to choose your loadouts and possibly your crew based off what the enemy team composition is. So that's vastly different from the current system of hop into a lobby, wait for the countdown, check what your opponent has, and at the last second try and counterpick or out counterpick the other team. A lot of people's matchmaker has been built on that system. Whether they're actually trying to do that little counterpicking or not, you're still being impacted by it. So wiping the MMR would actually bring everyone back to a baseline and let your MMR be based off of a permanently active system where you're fighting, ideally, opponents of your skill level, as opposed to just the first 9 random people you come across. It gives a lot of room for people who have high matchmaker ratings who aren't necessarily earning that off of playing against equally skilled players, the chance to not be punished by that always active matchmaker going on. It may be that they are good enough that they can beat your average player, but because they consistently play, let's say during prime time, when there's a higher percentage of newer players than there are at any other point in the day, that most of their opponents have always been significantly less skilled than them. That will inflate their MMR rating to be higher so that they're fighting against people once the system goes live. They're only ever fighting people who may have played during some of the off hours who have a higher percentage of running into other skilled players. Which means for them to have the same MMR rating based off the same kills, one player will be likely to be significantly more or less skilled than the other, despite them having, again, the same MMR. So it would give them the opportunity to at least earn the MMR rating they have without throwing them in against people who are significantly more or less skilled than them. Basically, it would kind of iron out some of the kinks that we have left over from this current on and off system between the matchmaker and the lobby, or the matchmaker and the server browser. So there are a couple other minor fixes that the reset would get to adjust, such as like the average XP per match being several times greater than the highest XP per match. Things that are more left over from the previous wipe of the leaderboards and the stats in October. It's not really a big deal. It's kind of minor, but again, it just kind of goes to this whole aspect that while none of these issues are overly serious and they're not game breaking, it's one of those things that I feel personally it would serve the community a lot better to have a system where we do all the resets now, and then, okay, yeah, in 2 months we do another reset, that's fine, but for right now, I think we should have a reset and go from there. Now, I know that's my opinion. Not everyone has that opinion. If you've got something different or you'd like a little more information, leave me a comment in the video below, the section below, whatever they're called. Let me know. I'll see if I can enlighten you or make a better argument. And have fun with the reset.